So what I wanted to start with, this whole talk it's about a really simple way of deploying what are technically static web applications, but which may involve that really very dynamic behavior and modern JavaScript, which I find fantastic for small projects. Okay, so I now have 3 different microphones. This is exciting. It's the most microphones I think I've ever had. Cool, so I'm going to start with a little project I had. So I kind of had this idea, like, what if I could come up with a little like ranking system for people's full stackiness? So if I could combine a sort of anti-PHP prejudice and various other random criteria. So you can now go to this website. So it's full stack. You can find the URLs later. And you can rank yourself in various categories, and you can then get ranked in your full stackiness. It turns out in a ranking system I invent, I give myself quite a high rating. Weird that. So I'm a unicorn apparently because of my full stack knowledge. But I came up with this little project idea and kind of went from the idea to actually a completely deployed version with HTTPS and a custom domain and something that people could play around with. I think it was basically in one evening. It was only in a matter of a few hours. And how I did that is going to be the subject of this talk. So I consider doing live coding, but that's kind of hard. So I recorded this video earlier this week. If you can, when you're editing the video, if you can make it look like I'm live coding, that would be awesome, because I sped up some parts of the video, so I'm going to be like, in the films, where they type at 1,000 words a minute, that's going to be happening at certain points here. So basically, I'm going to kind of talk over this video, and I'll have to catch up with the video. But basically, the main part of this is a tool called Gatsby. You install a command line client. There are a number of community starter projects. This is one of them, which basically provides a blog starter project. You initialize it with this Gatsby new, you give your project a name, and you give it the GitHub repo for this custom thing. In just over 2 minutes, and the crappy internet connection I was using, I have a working blog. You type Gatsby develop, and you have a modern JavaScript development environment locally. So you've got all of the nice things like errors nicely displayed in the browser, hot reloading, all of that stuff. And you've got this very nice starting place. So you've got all of the kind of things like prettier, flow, etc. Everything is nicely set up, ready to kind of go and get working efficiently on your blog. And this is making a static website. It's a bit weird to be using these dynamic JavaScript technologies like React, but actually they turn out to be a really nice solution. And this framework does things like code splitting and so on for you, so you don't have to worry about those kind of optimizing things. In terms of data, it has this philosophy of making everything accessible via GraphQL. So this may be markdown files locally, this may be third-party APIs, etc. But you have this built-in console where you can do interactive queries, and that's easily available in your app. I'm not really going to talk about that, but it's nice to kind of know that's available when you do need that power. And this framework has been used in various kind of really serious websites, such as the React developer documentation. It was recently being rebuilt using Gatsby. So it's kind of nice to know that I can use it for my little project and it gets stuff done, but also it works for world-class kind of websites. So anyway, so to continue with the story of how this makes it really easy to deploy, I set up a Git repository locally, set up a GitHub repository in GitHub for this. Do the usual stuff with adding the remote, pushing the data to that. So we've now got this on GitHub, and now the deploy is really, really simple. I log into Netlify, I add this site from GitHub, and I click on the deploy button, and boom, I've deployed this website to the internet, and it's like free, it's like done really nicely, it's also got continuous deployment. Whenever I push an update, it will also be instantly deployed. And that genuinely, in real time, that whole process takes like 10 minutes. Like, it's sped up a bit here, but it's like crazily quick. I've never encountered another set of tools that can deliver that result quite that quickly. Here I've logged into AWS, Route 53. I'm going to add a custom domain name. Again, this is really, really simple. I just log into Netlify, add the details here. I mean, this does seem like a bit of an advert for Netlify. Honestly, if they'd like to give me money, that's great, but they're not. So, you can add a custom domain. And this is the bit which I find most magical. 2-click SSL. You can make your site HTTPS in like 2 clicks. Like, that's just insane. Like, have you ever set up an HTTPS in a server? It's a nightmare. This is like 2 clicks. This is now served via HTTPS. So we've gone in a matter of minutes. You've gone from an idea to something that's on the internet with like a custom domain and HTTPS and all of that kind of stuff. That's crazy. So the barrier for shipping a side project to the world is like so much lower. So here we're doing some customizations. I've thrown out the demo data. I've written a custom article, which is in fact about this talk. This is the first of many meta kind of parts in this talk. And I've done a few other customizations to the React components. Added a little photograph of a Raspberry Pi because everyone likes Raspberry Pis. Then when I push these updates to GitHub, the continuous deployment kicks in. Netlify deploys the new version of the website with customization. So this is where we started earlier today. And yeah, I think this is really amazing. And if you haven't tried this, you definitely should try it. So I've got a couple of other little examples I'll share of projects I've done with this. And I really think these are things that I might not have done if it hadn't been for the fact that this deploy is just so crazily easy and productive. So I have this React Native game called RGB Logic. You should download it. Basically, I wanted a nice way of like sharing games of it and also creating an interactive tutorial. So that's actually quite a complex front-end app in terms of the logic for this game, but it really, because of this deploy process and the reusability, write once, run everywhere, is that the right thing for React? I was able to do this very quickly. So I got this interactive game that people can play. So you can be playing a game on your phone and share that with your friends on Facebook or whatever. There's also a little tutorial, which was kind of the original point of this. The other little project, or one of the other little projects I did with this approach, was a coding checklist. And again, this gets kind of meta because I had this idea that there are these certain kind of opinionated processes I might want to share. So they're not really documentation for a particular thing. They're kind of like my take on how you might do something. So composing perhaps a web framework with certain opinions and what you should use for authentication. But I added this talk here. So you can now follow along with the details of this talk in a nice incremental checklisty way. And then as you do the various steps, you can check them off. I think I need to add like ticks and make it look more like checklists. But that's kind of a fairly minor point to just draw the visuals of it. But again, this is all of these amazing properties of like this really, really nice world-class deploy situation, continuous deployment. So if I spot a typo, I'm not going to be, there's a typo, I should fix this at some point and never actually fix it. I could just like log into GitHub and make a commit directly to master. Of course, that's not what you would ever do in a day job, but on a little side project like this, that's a great thing to allow. So let me just flick back to the notes. So this is Gatsby.js. I have not talked about the advanced stuff this does. It does some really nice stuff around GraphQL and how you can kind of make custom data available. I have used that on one project. To be honest, I mostly just use it as a really nice solution for like local development and a good quality deployment. And yeah, it's great for that purpose. You can couple with Netlify and wire up GitHub and so on. There are links here. Just as an aside, of course, there are other solutions. Previously, I would typically have used AWS's S3 for this kind of thing, but it's kind of it's an okay solution, but it involves more manual steps. And whenever it involves manual steps and friction, you're going to be less likely to do it. Now I think is quite an interesting tool in this kind of space because it's kind of like a one command deploy, but in a way like this kind of approach of continuous deployment is a zero command deploy. I push the code, it gets deployed. There's other things like Surge and now actually is a static site thing. Cool, so I think that's mostly it. You should all go to the full stack thing and like rate yourselves. As node developers, you're probably going to do pretty well because you can kind of cover a few of the categories quite easily. Whereas PHP developers are explicitly forbidden from actually taking part in this. So PHP is explicitly forbidden. I've also banned Java. If you use Java, you have to stop at the middle point, and XML configuration that also cut off. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, my opinions. Thank you.